I knew this path is not sustainable.
Yeah.
And I have two choices. I die or I heal.
Woo.
Whether you're a life coach, therapist, biohacker, invested in wellness, or in the healthcare profession, if you have an intention to work in psychedelic spaces, you're in the right place then. If you're called, get involved. But first, get informed. Let's talk the 4 N's: intake, intention, in-space integration, leading to deeper transformations. Psychedelic Coach Podcast, Todd Cole. Walk you through the process, it's all possible. Leave space for the follow through. Most importantly, integration is not optional.
Hey, what's up, everybody? You know who I am, Providencia Lopez. I'm here at the Condor Approach in Austin, Texas with my girl, Meridyth. We have had a beautiful, beautiful time connecting here, and it's been an honor and a pleasure to work with you a little bit, like just dipping our baby toe in, and then one day we were like, oh my God, we're like one and the same. We're like sisters from a different mister, and the Condor Approach brought the energies together, so I'm really excited about that. So if you don't know about the Condor Approach, it is an approach that teaches people about different levels in their healing, and they use very specific structures like the OTT, and they support other coaches and people just in where they are and how to get out of certain oppression trap triangles or knowing about the intake process. But it's definitely a space for healers who didn't go the clinical route in healing but went down that spiritual rabbit hole, and now we're here.
Here we are.
And for me, my spiritual rabbit hole took a lot of trauma. So I had to go through a lot of triggers, had to go through a lot of mess to get here. But in this, what everyone would say messiness, I founded Healing Your Providence. So we shared a lot of things in common that were very unique. And when we started to connect, we were like, oh my God, you speaking my language right here. Yeah. And so let's talk about you, Meridyth. Where are you from? What got you into this industry, this business, and what brought you here to Austin to do the Condor Approach?
First of all, thank you for sitting with me here and now, and also for the incredible space that you held for me this week. It's been so powerful.
Awesome. So glad. Thank you. Yeah. I see you.
I see you.
Oh, thank you. And you are powerful. Like, we'll get into that.
We'll get into it. We'll get into it. We'll fangirl over each other later.
Yes. So let's talk about it. What brought you here to the Condor Approach? You said you deal with helping people with their trauma. What does that look like, and what have you gone through to get you to this level of awareness? Like, you got to go through something to be willing to. Right.
Yeah. I'm from Nashville.
Nice.
And I came down here because I've known Cole for 16 years, and we met when we were very different versions of ourselves. And I've had the joy of watching her transform over and over again.
Yes.
And I've seen from a bird's eye view, from Nashville, from a distance, right? I've seen her and Todd develop this into something incredible. And I knew that the work that she does in the world is profound. Yes. And I've been to a retreat of hers before the Condor Approach, and that was really powerful for me and in my process and journey. So I knew, without knowing a whole lot, I knew that this had something really important in it for me.
Yeah.
And so I just followed the intuition. I followed what felt right and opened myself up to be delighted and surprised for whatever came through in this experience. Beautiful. And it's been probably the most transformational 3 going on 4 days of my life, as far as condensed, moving through big shit.
And it's intense.
It's intense, and I'm here for it. I love it. I'm an intense human. I learn through intensity.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a 3-5 in human design, so I'm like, let me go out and collect all of the experiences.
Yeah, okay. I'm a 6'2", so I understand that. And one thing I can say, when I heard Cole's story, I love her rawness and her realness. Yeah. And me coaching people, I wanted to bring that same rawness and realness because I do sober coaching. And sober coaching, you can't come to no sober coaching container being no punk to the game. Like, I'm just going to tell you right now. And a lot of times in coaching people, you deal with people that have some really deep-seated, ingrained traumas and triggers which cause them to drink. So you're on the opposite end of helping someone process their triggers. And I would be like on the other end of like when your traumas and triggers get too heavy and you find yourself in an abuse state of alcohol, drugs, sex, or any kind of addiction. What does that look like? So talk about what has your experience been like to be able to talk to somebody about their traumas and their triggers, to really be like, hey, I've been there before too. Sometimes people, they come to me and they're like, oh, you won't understand. I'm like, excuse me, cocaine, stripper, alcohol, got in a fight, left my kids, driving drunk. Like, I'm all of that, you know what I'm saying? But now that I see on the other side, I'm also healing, public speaking, a sacred woman practitioner. So it's, I see my fear state and I see my love state.
Yeah.
And I love that. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. People ask me all the time how I got into this work, and my answer is always the same: by hitting rock bottom, of course.
Right.
And I experienced a lot of trauma, and also I think it's important to note that when I talk about trauma, everyone looks at it, or not everyone, most people look at it through the lens of what happened to you.
Right.
It is also what didn't happen to you. And so I work with a lot of...
That's heavy.
Yes.
Say that one more time.
Trauma is not always what happened to you. Sometimes it's what didn't happen to you.
Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
Yeah, and that's typically the type of trauma that I work with. I call it subtle trauma because it normally builds up over a long period of time, and people can very easily gaslight themselves into thinking that they weren't traumatized.
Listen, y'all, we about to get into this thing today. Let's go.
Let's go. I experienced that in my childhood. I experienced that flavor of trauma, and literally it took me until a couple years to go from the place of what the fuck is wrong with me. I was never locked in a basement and left for weeks starving.
Right.
My experience was the subtle trauma where it was what I didn't get. And then
that's beautiful.
And then flash forward to when I'm 15, 16, 17, I was diagnosed with degenerative disc disease. I had 2 ruptured discs in my back, and then I was rear-ended by a semi-truck and almost lost my leg. I lived in chronic pain for 15 years. I was not able to walk every day. There were days that I could not even drag myself to the bathroom or take care of my child.
Wow.
I thought I knew what I wanted to do with my life, and I really went hell-bent on that purpose. And I knew from a very early age I was put here to help people, and I thought that it was through politics and through working with the UN, and I was going to do the Peace Corps and all of these things. And I had a volunteer experience in Cambodia where someone screamed at me, and they were like, you stupid American, you think you're helping people, and you're really doing more harm than good. Until you have a shit ton of money, you can't help anyone.
Oh, wow.
This is around about the time I found out that my mom had forged my name on thousands of dollars of student loans that I would have to double to finish school. And I was a psychology major and international politics. So I dropped out of college and I started my first business and started chasing money so that I could serve.
Wow.
So that I could make the world a better place and fulfill my purpose. Started my first business, got a $6 million investor, and it fell through. And my entire identity was wrapped up in this business. And then 6 months later, my infertile ass was pregnant.
Oh, my God.
So all of these things culminated. And then I experienced other types of trauma, sexual assault, rape, things like that along the way when I was in my wounded era. And so when my child was about 1, I really hit rock bottom, because as soon as he was born, I was like, okay, well, if I'm going to be a mom, then I'm just going to be the best mom I can be, and completely fell under the mom guilt and the societal pressure to
to
be the perfect little khaki short wearing, visor wearing, pushing her stroller to tennis practice. And that is not who the fuck I am. So it essentially,
learned that lesson quick, huh?
quick. I was like, this doesn't fit.
Oh my gosh,
so
that's funny.
Yeah, so this led to an identity crisis and a rock bottom. And from that rock bottom, I knew this path is not sustainable.
Yeah.
And I have 2 choices: I die or I heal.
Woo! Say that one more time. Like, I need people to understand how this work is so important.
Yeah.
You told people 2 different things. You either would.
I die or I heal.
People don't get that, Meridyth. People don't understand And I tell people all the time whenever I'm talking to them, like, when are you ready to get off the trauma train?
Yeah.
This train is going fast and you're not going to make it, but you have the opportunity to get off this motherfucker. But if you don't want to get off, you can stay on, but you can't drag everybody with you.
No.
And I had a moment like that as well when at the time I didn't see how fucked up my life really was. I was young. I tried doing the wife, mother, have a first baby, run with the Bior and all this other shit, and just looking real crazy.
Yeah.
That didn't work for me. And what it taught me was later on in life, tried doing the stripper thing, partying, doing drugs, because I was so in the mom phase and I wanted to be in the rebel phase.
Yeah.
I couldn't keep up with that because that's a very expensive lifestyle and it comes at a heavy price.
Yes, it does.
And then I tried getting engaged, moving, and it wasn't until I would say I almost hit my rock bottom right before I got sober, and I almost lost my kids. I had an argument with someone, slashed a tire, slashed a couch, jumped in my car with my kids, and I was drunk, and luckily I didn't kill them or get a DUI, but something clicked in me and was like, you're either going to heal your shit and stop drinking or you're going to die. It wasn't even about me losing my children because they were already lost at that point. My drinking had gotten so out of the control that I no longer could even, because my youngest daughter was like 18 months. My oldest daughter was like 6 or 7. Maybe she was like 8 or 9. Like, it's so blurry back then because I drank so much. But it's like I was either going to work on healing myself through other communities, or I was literally going to drink myself to death.
Yes. And I think that's something that people don't think about when I say I was either going to die or I have to heal. That death, for a lot of people, it's unaliving themselves.
Yes.
And for a lot of people, it's drinking themselves into the ground. It's abusing drugs. It's abusing their bodies. I've seen people eat themselves to death, drink themselves to death.
Like your soul literally detaches from your body.
Yeah.
And it's like this is your physical body and this is your soul. And your soul's looking like, bitch, please get it together.
I've left the building. Can you make a hospitable home for me to come back to? Because I'm not until you do.
Exactly. So I really love your take on healing, that it's either something that you're going to do or you're going to fake or you're not going to do it at all. But one thing I do want to tell you that will share with you that really shifted my perspective in this level of awareness, which led me here to the Condor approach, was that I was ready to start standing in my authentic self. I had been hiding from the womb up until 35 years old, up until 38, 39, just like going along to get along, making everybody else happy, wanting to be supportive for my kids, my family, and everybody else. As long as everybody else is happy, I was happy. And then one day I was like, you know what? I'm sick of living in this rut. And I guess I want to say I had a sober midlife crisis once I stopped drinking. Then 6 months later, I got a motorcycle and I was like, it's time for me to do a couple of things that make me happy.
Hell yeah.
And as I started to do it, I started learning more about authenticity and like removing the idea of perfection out of my head. Perfection keeps you away from being your authentic self.
Yeah.
Can you share about how like trauma causes you to fawn and be in this ideal perfection? Like in my head, I wanted to be the perfect parent, the perfect daughter, the perfect friend. And I was losing people left and right because, number one, they didn't see their own value, so they didn't see their value in me. And then it made me really force myself to see the value within myself. Can you talk about that a little bit?
I sure can, because this is actually like the type of, this is like my favorite person to work with, right? So basically, it's really evolutionary. It's a really primal thing that it boils down to. When you're a child and you're told, go to your room when you're emotional. That's one. When you check it off, I'm going to put my finger up. Yep.
Put your finger down if you...
Yeah, put a finger down. If you were told to go to your room when you were in an emotional state, so you're signaled that all of you is not okay, and that you can only be in our presence and in connection and receiving love when you look, sound, and be a certain way.
Wow.
Then we're told you have to look like this in certain
Yes.
environments. And if you don't, you better shapeshift because you're going to bring shame to the family.
Yes.
Then you're told you can only sound or talk a certain way, or you'll bring shame to the family, and we will what?
Shun you.
We'll shun you.
We'll push you out.
And from an evolutionary perspective, since we are essentially pack animals, what happens if you're kicked out of the herd?
Yeah.
You die alone.
You're by yourself.
And as a child, when I am relying, pretend you're my caregiver, I
Yes.
rely on you to feed me, to love me, to bathe me, to keep a roof over my head. When I rely on you for that, if you tell me that I am only acceptable in a certain format,
Yeah.
then I'm going to change, right?
You're going to fawn. You have no reason. You can't do anything else.
And if I perceive you pulling away from me or judging me or hitting me or any of these things, either you're a bad person or I'm a bad person.
That's right.
But when you're in development, when you are a child and you are reliant, when I'm reliant on you as my caregiver,
Yes.
the world becomes an incredibly dangerous place if you're a bad person.
That's very true.
So I have to be the bad person. There has to be something wrong with me. And so this is where we start to really see shame and blame and
Yes.
shape-shifting and fawning. And this is where we disconnect from our voice. We disconnect from our power. We
gosh.
disconnect from our intuition. We disconnect from our anger, our fire, our creativity, our passion, all of our power as women. We turn it down for other
Yes.
people's convenience, power, and profit.
And I had the mother, and I'm sure your mother probably, or I could ask, did your mom say this? You're just too much.
Yes.
You're just all over the place. You don't know how to act. Or she would say things like, women should be seen and not heard. Oh, that was the one that would always get me.
Oh, mine was women's purpose is to feed people and look pretty.
Oh, yeah.
I can throw down in the kitchen. That's a
Right,
trauma
yeah.
adaptation I'll take with me. I'll keep it.
And I decided to do the opposite. Like, I refused to get in the kitchen because I'm like, I don't want to be like, I would see my mom wake up when she was with her boyfriend at 6 o'clock in the morning to put her makeup on and go make breakfast and slave over the kitchen. So I made it a point not to cook. Fuck that. You're not going to have me in the kitchen with heels on, cooking with my robe on at 7 o'clock in the morning.
With a full face of makeup. I'm not the one.
I'm not the one. But so that's what I feel like. And so let's say this. Our parents did not have our level of awareness.
No.
Because even as I have a 16-year-old, the things that you're saying, the things that Todd are saying, I always have to tell her, this is a new life for me, but don't get the game fucked up, okay? I still understand where my fault lines are, and if I have to use them, I will.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, I have enough self-awareness to say, hey, I'm in a really bad place today. I'm not feeling this shit. This has nothing to do with you. So if I'm pausing and I'm pulling back, it's not because of you. It has everything to do with me. Either I'm tired, I'm hungry, I need to go take some time for myself. And I love being in a container with my children and the people around me.
Yes.
That when I am feeling uncomfortable, that they understand that it's not them. And then I can always come back and reconnect when I'm ready.
Yes.
And so I feel like a lot of times with our parents, it is the patterns that we see. They are picking up on the same, some people call it generational curses. I don't like to call it a curse because sometimes it's not a bad curse. My mom also gifted me the art of time management, being on time at places, being responsible with my money. So I like to call it, you know, patterns that we have from our parents and then their parents. My father was an alcoholic. You know what I'm saying? And my mother believed that perfectionism was everything until one day she had a double mastectomy and realized that it didn't matter about your boobs anymore. Your boobs don't have to be perfect. You don't have to always have to have the perfect credit score. It's okay to have a 750 versus an 815.
I've
you know
never
what I'm
had
saying?
a 750.
But it's like one of those things where I realized that my mom's patterns and my grandmother's patterns were nurtured into generational patterns.
Yeah.
That's the only way that I can say it.
It's generational trauma. And what happens with trauma, when we're children, we're really adaptable little critters. And so we learn what adaptations we have to make to stay safe and to stay loved.
Oh, yes.
So some of those adaptations
Are so unhealthy.
we carry with us into our adult life, and they're not
yes.
functional. They're not helping us. We are experiencing a lot of dis-ease, right? And then some of those trauma adaptations are great. Like, I'm funny as fuck, and that's trauma.
Right.
Thank you, trauma. I'll keep that.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Like some things are your trauma response and you're like, thank you, trauma. So like, I guess for me, now that I want to be seen and I want to be heard, now I'm like, you're going to see me and you're going to fucking hear me. And that's why I'm here today.
Yes.
I want to be seen. I was telling Lena an example. I had my first speaking engagement where I was paid to go and I was so excited and my mom's like, don't be up there thinking you saw all that in the big shit. And I was like, that's why they hired me.
The
Like,
next time that happens, you call me and I'm going to speak life over you and
Right.
rebuke that. And I will step into
Thank
my mama
you.
pants and I will
Thank
be your
you.
mom in that moment and I will build you up.
So I will say this. Let's talk about your journey yesterday with the cold water.
Oh my God.
I felt such a spiritual experience with that from the first time when I heard you scream, a scream of, it was almost like a childbirth. When I heard that scream, I was like, somebody just went through something and they just gave birth to themselves.
Yeah.
Like looking back on it. And when I heard it, I was like, we were in the tent and I was like, oh, wow. And you kind of like when I heard you scream, I was like, yeah, I don't think I want to do that now. I don't think I'm ready. I was like, no, I can't be ready yet. This is not my time to do this one. Like, I'll get y'all next time around. And when I saw you, you look free, but you still looked a little perplexed. Like, that was a lot.
Yeah.
And then what I loved about your journey just with the water from what I've seen in the last 24, 48, 72 hours was that you wanted to go again. You were like, but this time I want to go again and I want to be intentional, that I want people around me to speak life into me.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you now that just gives me chills all through my body because you were like, I need my community. And we're talking about courage today.
Yeah.
And sometimes, like when you're going through something, you don't realize that you need your community. And that's what I love about the Condor approach is that it doesn't matter what you look like, your age, race. You could be a dog or a cat. They'll be like, this is your community.
Yeah,
Come on in.
we got you.
Right. And share a little bit about your cold water plunge and what you were feeling before. What was your bridging the gap moment from the first time to the second time? What did you have to implement to give yourself the courage to go back in there to fight that fight again?
Yeah.
And to come out on the other side? Like, I really want to hear this.
Yeah. There's so much to say. First of all, the too much piece really was the catalyst for the whole thing. And the too much is the mother wound. I actually just wrote a book and guided journal on it. It's available for free on my website if anyone wants it later.
Yes.
So I carried a lot of shame from that too much piece. And like Cole said, the healing is not a linear line. It is not
Yes.
one straight line.
People don't understand that.
They don't get it. And they think it's like all sunshine and rainbows. And there is so much of that.
Yeah.
But there's also the dark shadow, and there's also the dark night of the soul, and there's feeling like you have to pull away from certain people. And the thing and that's what stops people from doing this, right?
Yes.
And what they
That
don't understand.
solitude gets scary.
Yeah, and having to face all your shit and feel all your shit.
Yes.
And the thing that people don't grasp in it is that their capacity for the hard emotions is their capacity for the positive ones, right? The quote unquote positive ones. So your capacity for grief and sadness and rage is going to be mirrored in your capacity for joy and fun and ease. And so when you build the capacity to sit with the hard ones, the joy, the connection, the community, the alignment, the people, it all gets so much better.
It does.
So much better.
It's like food after you cook it, and then the next day it gets better than the
like
third.
chili.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Then like a couple of days in, you're like, oh, it's just right.
That's perfect.
So when you got into the water, initially, what were your thoughts?
Before I got into the water, I was terrified to get
You
into
were.
the water.
I did hear your share about that.
Yeah, I hate being cold. I absolutely hate it. And cold plunges have kept coming up, and I'm like, okay, I know that.
Same for me.
I do what?
Cold plunges kept coming up for me too.
Ugh, don't you? And you're like,
I
okay,
hate that when
damn
the
it.
universe be sending it in threes, and after the
I know.
third time, I'm like, I gotta do it.
Damn it. Yeah. So I had a friend who was like, you got to try this. And then recently I was invited to one. And I was like, oh, sorry, can't that day, which was true. But also I was like,
yeah,
can't
get out
catch
of
me.
this one. Right.
Then 2 days before I came, I had a dream that I went somewhere and there were two cold water plunges set up right next to each other. And I was like, damn it, that means I have to do it. And in the dream, I did it. And then I woke up from the dream and I was like, damn it, that means it's coming up soon. And I walked in here and it was literally
The same
almost
way.
identical to my dream. And I was like, here it is.
Gosh, that's so amazing. Just before we get into that, how the universe sets you up for what's about to happen.
Yeah.
And when we use that intuition and we lock in, it's almost like the universe is giving us the play already. We just got to be, okay, keep
Like,
going.
Get ready, bitch. It's coming.
Yeah. That's so awesome.
So I got here and I looked at it and I was like, damn it. Okay, that means I have to do this. And typically I'm a real lean in kind of girl.
Yeah.
And this one, it was edgy it was really edgy for me. And so I shared that with Todd and I was like, I'm afraid of pain. And we worked through a few different things and ultimately ended up setting the intention that I wanted to use this as a way to connect to my will and to my power. And I loved working with rage and anger.
Oh, yeah.
I love working with fire energy. And I knew
that
before
Sekhmet
coming.
energy. I love it. Oh, she's a beast.
That Kali,
Yeah.
yes. So I knew before coming, I was like, I'm a little more dysregulated than usual. I'm feeling some of this rumbling, right? Like the
Right.
volcano's starting to rumble.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, that's going to be my intention. I'm going to lean into, I'm going to find my fire.
That's beautiful.
And so I got in there and it was highly uncomfortable, and so I just let my fire out.
Wow.
And I screamed. And rage derepression, when you're working with people, it is so much like childbirth. It's incredible.
It is. It sounded like you were birthing a whole baby. I was like, somebody just went through a rebirth up there.
Yeah.
And that is okay.
It was anger moves in waves like that when you're letting it out. And so there were 3 really big guttural screams that come from the womb, which is where we store so much of our anger.
Yes.
And so I just said, fuck it. I'm going to release whatever comes out. And that's what came out, as well as some weird noises of me sounding like a baby seal who's been clubbed. But
Baby seal vibes, those are okay too. We don't judge your screams around here.
No, and I this is the only place where I've felt, this is one of the only places I've ever felt safe enough to really lean into that.
That is so amazing.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy for you that you had a container where you didn't, not you, I'm so grateful that I have a container where I don't have to be perfect and I can do those ugly cries.
Yeah.
Because we hold on to so much as women because our makeup has to be right, our hair has to be right, life has to look right. And sometimes you just want to have that ugly, nasty, snotty nose cry. And here I get the freedom to do that.
To do it.
That's just like,
And then be thanked for it.
Oh,
Someone
yeah.
will come up to you and be like, thank you for letting me witness that. I needed that.
right.
And you're like, you needed to see me fall apart.
Right. I fall apart right through my heart. Like my daughter, I love singing that song when she's in the car. We go, ooh, but I love it. Like you get to fall apart.
Yeah.
And you get to put your pieces back together.
Yeah.
But you also have people that say, hey girl, you
I
got
see
another
you.
piece over here.
And
Let
this-
me bring it over to you.
Here's this beautiful piece. Yeah, and that was what I experienced. So I knew as soon as I got here, okay, I need more of this community.
Right.
I need more of this support. I carry it all on my own. This is what this pain in my right shoulder is. I'm the space holder. I'm comfortable being the space holder. I'm really good in that role. I am not really good at asking for help. I'm not really good at being held. So I knew that was what I was going to be brought into this weekend. That was the initiation.
Right.
And then I didn't know that it would be through the ice or the cold plunge. And so after that, everyone was like, oh, you're going to be so blissful and you're going to feel so great and you can do anything. And that was not my case.
Right.
I felt like some shit had cracked open inside of me and it was unsettled. And
your nut got cracked. That's
got
what
cracked
Sincere
wide
told me.
open.
Be prepared for your nut to get cracked.
It did.
Yeah.
And I cracked open that, like, I look at it as a cavern that was underground, and that ice cracked straight into that cavern, and I got to release the fire and
That's
the rage
beautiful.
and the anger. And in that fire and rage and anger, in that fire energy, there's also passion and will and strength. And that strength allowed me what was happening after when I was like, something don't feel right. I'm not there. This ain't it. It was something below that cracking open, and it gave me the strength to take a look at this really deep, really old pocket of shame.
Can you
And
talk about that a little bit if you're comfortable?
yeah, absolutely. Like Cole was saying, healing is not a straight line. It's a circle, right? Kind of like
Yeah.
what a spring would look like. this was stuff I've worked in my shame. I've sat in my shame. I've worked through that. And anger. None of this is new to me.
No.
These are just new levels of it to me. And this was really old. I was doing a parts work session with a friend a few weeks ago, and I saw this part of myself that I'd never seen before. And it was like this little slimy worm on the floor.
Wow.
And it couldn't even be looked at. And it was like pre-verbal, possibly even in utero baby shit.
Wow.
And it carried shame, so much shame. And I couldn't really work with that part. It wasn't safe at that time for that part to be seen.
Right.
And that's ultimately, I think, why I came here. So I did what was really hard to do, and I went and I got Ta, and I was like, I need support in looking at this. First of all, I typically would experience too much shame to let someone see me in my shame, right? Because, I'm a coach and a practitioner. Haven't you already worked through this shit?
Right.
It's like I have to be the perfect. No, I've done all that. I don't experience these things anymore. Fuck that shit.
Fuck
and
that.
that's another thing I love about this community is that you can bring all of yourself. It's all welcome here, and I'm so grateful for that. That I'm not the only one that lives by that.
Yes.
And so I was like, okay, I really get to stretch, and I get to let someone see me in the biggest depths of my shame that I've ever been able to touch. And I shared that with Ta, and he just poured into me. And he worked through it with me, and he listened, and we worked through all of those places that shame was showing up, and it was all in the too much.
Yeah.
All in the too much, because I'm a lot, and that's...
Both of you and me both. I get that a lot.
Yeah.
In the dating world, I'm just a lot. In the parenting world, I'm just a lot. In the PTA world,
I'm a whole lot for them.
I'm too much. I'm like, no, bitch, go back home.
Yeah, you know? Yeah. My son's private Christian school.
Right.
They ain't ready.
They ain't never been ready.
You can't hold this much.
Oh, God, it's so funny that it's so you know what? I love divine mirrors. Mm-hmm. And when I saw you, I was like, she has that same kind of fiery energy like myself. And not to put projection or insertions, but I was like, I like her a lotness. Like, I like that nail because I'm a believer that iron sharpens iron, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to ever go up against a baked potato because it just won't work. Like, we just won't have any fun. Right?
No.
Baked potatoes need to be with baked potatoes, and iron needs to be with iron, and it's okay. But I love that allotness because it allows people to. I tell people this all the time: you either love me or you fucking hate me.
Same, and that's
you
my
either
3-5.
absolutely love me, or you can't stay. I walk through the door, you're walking around on the other side to leave.
Oh God, there she is. Don't make eye contact.
Right. Oh God, there goes Zoe's mom. Please don't look. And I'm like, hey, it is. It is what it is. So let's go back to the cold plunge.
Yeah.
You work on this shame space.
Yeah.
Ta walks you through it.
Yeah, Ta really.
Ta is the best person to walk you through anything.
Seriously. And I felt so I needed the masculine container.
Yes.
I needed the non-judgmental space.
Yes.
I needed someone with firm boundaries that I could trust because a big part of my too muchness is I'm afraid that in my sharing and in asking for my help, you're going to bulldoze past your own boundaries and that I'm going to end up being too much for you. So I hold back in a lot of places. So knowing that Ta is so firm in his boundaries and just so boundaried as a human, I could trust that if I got to the point where it was too much for him, he could let me know in a kind and loving way. So I could fully be my fullest expression of shame in that moment and that he could hold it.
Right.
So that was such a divine alignment of scenarios and circumstances and people and just a testament to the Condor approach again. And after we did that, I feel like he patched me up and I went home still raw.
Right.
And also proud of myself.
So you're processing that. You get into the space of you're letting go of the shame. Now we're back at day 2.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, this is my intention. I'm very clear on my intention. I'm leaving all of that there. This is the death of that version of me and the rebirth of the Meridyth who is comfortable and excited by and empowered by her fullest expression and who's not afraid to show that to the world. If it's messy, rough around the edges, too much, too loud, too whatever, it's coming out. So get on board or get out of the way.
Yes, that's...
We were talking about projections and insertions.
Oh, gosh.
And Ta was saying you're really, really open when you're in the cold plunge. And insertions are very potent in that space. And I was like, I need to lean in not only to the shame and the cold,
Yes.
but also to asking for support and asking for what I need. So I went to a few people and I was like, hey, this is my intention for this one. Would you please witness me and speak these things? No, whatever, right? I didn't give anyone a script, but like, will you please give positive insertions to me while I'm in this ice? And then right after that, I had a conversation with Paul Mark, who told me about the golden shadow, and I'd never...
Didn't we talk about that together? We were standing there together.
I had never
Let's
heard
go
of
back
that.
over that again.
Yeah.
He said...
We were talking about shadow work, and I was like, most people don't understand that like, doing the shadow work is more than just looking at the scary shit or feeling it, but it's also integrating it and bringing it all back into wholeness through love and compassion.
Right.
And Paul Mark said they also tend to only look at the dark shadow. They don't look at the golden shadow.
I had never heard of the golden shadow. I
Neither
think we
had
both were
I.
sitting there like our mouth on the ground.
I started crying. I was
Right.
like, well, what's the golden shadow? And it's all of the positive attributes, features, magic, strengths, gifts, the compliments that you don't feel
come
comfortable
all over
receiving.
you. And I think he told us like a meditation to do where you just let all of this stuff wash all over you
and land.
And
yeah, I'd never heard that term
I had
before.
never heard that before, but Paul Mark is a Paul Mark, so you should expect the unexpected and stuff to hit you across the head.
Yeah.
So when he told you that, it just changed your perspective about shadow work.
It brought all of the pieces suddenly all of the pieces to this puzzle all fit perfectly into place, and I was like, that is everything I need for this plunge. And because the golden shadow essentially is like what I haven't been stepping into.
Yes, we always look at the bad stuff,
know.
but we never take the time to look at how
good.
great we are.
I know.
Gosh, that was a message for me yesterday as well.
Or we'll do it for somebody else, but we can't do it for ourselves.
Oh my God, yes. So true.
Yeah. So I got my ass back in that water with a very clear intention and with the most beautiful community surrounding me.
Yes.
And you especially just had so many kind and loving and life-giving words for me when I was in that really hard moment.
Yeah.
And a really pivotal part of my entire life. That
That's
experience
beautiful.
will go down in the history of my life as
That was
one of the most
beautiful.
powerful moments. And when I went all the way under at the very end, I said, this is it. This is the burial and the rebirth.
Thank you so much for
Thank you.
sharing your journey.
I feel like we could go forever. And I just
Right.
want to say thank you for seeing me, for witnessing me, for
Yes.
being a safe place that I could come and say, hey, this is what I need. And for just pouring into me and for also shining your own light and for doing the work that you're doing.
Some things need to be healed in community, and we offer you something unparalleled with the Condor Approach Live. We're going to talk about how to prepare for, navigate, and integrate your psychedelic experiences for yourself or those that you love. These live events are catalysts. They really allow you to uncover and unleash the potential that you already have within you. When you're surrounded by like-minded people who are walking the walk and are committed to the path, you may even find your next facilitator or coach, but this event is designed to foster genuine relationships, give you community that supports and uplifts you, wants to see you win. If you've been wanting to embody this understanding and take these skills to a new level, then a live dynamic environment is just the way. You can go to thecondorapproach.com. That is thecondorapproach.com, and we will see you in February.
Integration is not optional.